Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts, sports journalist David Todd, and from SteelersDepot.com, Dave Bryan. Just a couple of Daves, chillin', talking Steelers. Now, here's Dave and Dave.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Dave. He's Dave Bryan of SteelersDepot.com, a place to get you latest and greatest Steelers information. And I'm David Todd at Season 9, Episode 34. Excuse me. And Dave, it is Bengals week. And I'll tell you, this rivalry has taken on a new level over the last 5 years of intensity and priority, I would even say, in the world for the Steelers. How much are you looking forward to this game on Sunday against the Bengals team that's actually played very well so far this year?
Yeah, I really am. You know, this is a game that's been, I guess, best described by maybe Ben Roethlisberger this past week as always involving some chippiness, if you will. So, you know, I think that's a good way to kind of encapsulate it, if you will. And, you know, for a game that, or I don't know, who do you consider their biggest rival right now? Ravens, the Bengals?
I think until the Bengals beat the Steelers, the Ravens will be it in terms of how the Steelers look at things, because rivalries are bred on the fact that there is a competitive nature to them, and even though the Bengals have at times been even a playoff team, I mean, you know, for lack of putting it another way, the Steelers have been their daddy. I mean, there's no question in going into Cincinnati and smoking them and really dominating them over the years, even over the recent history and the playoff win. It's probably still the Ravens, but there is a level of respect now between the Steelers and the Ravens that may not exist between the Steelers and Bengals.
Yeah, and the Steelers have won the last five straight against the Bengals. Is that right? Let's see. Steelers have won the previous 5 meetings with them. So, and if you go back and look at Andy Dalton, I think Andy Dalton is 1-6 against the Steelers in Cincinnati. All right, so that there's 7 games that he's 1-6 against the Steelers in Cincinnati. And I think Roethlisberger is something like, what is he, like 12-2?
It's something crazy, and you know, his record in Ohio is something insane, like, you know, 20-something and 3 or 4. I mean, he just has beaten both those teams every single time. It seems like. Yeah,
12-2, I think, in games in Cincinnati. So, I mean, it would be a huge accomplishment if the Bengals win this game, and if they do win this game, I think you can say, man, the Bengals really really are going to be a team to contend with here. However,
clearly in the driver's seat in the AFC, right? I mean, in the AFC North. I mean, right. No doubt.
Yeah, but look how quickly this thing might be able to get away from them. What are we going to be talking about the Bengals a month from now if they lose this game? Because after this game, they get the Chiefs at Kansas City. That's going to be a tough damn game, right? After that, they get the Buccaneers. Do we really know what the Buccaneers are? I mean, you would think that Cincinnati matches up good against the Buccaneers as we sit here today, right? But, I mean, this is a Buccaneers team that started off the season, even though with a different quarterback on fire there. Then Cincinnati gets their bye week, and they come out of their bye week with a game at home against the Saints, and then a game on the road against the Baltimore Ravens. So are we going to be sitting?
Yeah, you're right. No, I didn't realize it was that tough. I knew they were playing the Chiefs coming up, but I didn't realize it was as tough as it was. So, yeah, this is an important game for them, obviously.
Right. I mean, so if they lose this game, like I said, I mean, are we going to be sitting here chuckling a month from now saying, Boy, hey, Dave, remember when we thought the Bengals had surprised us and all? Well, here they are at, I don't know, pick out a 5-4 or 5-5, at the 10-game mark here. So this really is, I think, an important game indeed for the Bengals, because let's face it, if the Steelers, and obviously a big if the Steelers get hot here and can rattle through their next 3 games all against divisional opponents, then the Bengals are not going to get another shot at the Steelers until week 17, and things might be over by then. So I really think this is a big game for the Bengals, and obviously it's a big game for the Steelers, because as we've talked about so many times the last couple of weeks, is these 3 games we're going to learn a lot, not only about the Steelers, but about what constitutes the makeup of the AFC North in 2018.
Yeah, and obviously for the Bengals, they got their home win against the Ravens, so they put that one in the books. If they could get a home win against the Steelers, look, you at worst case, if they're to win the game, at worst case they'll split the season series with the 2 teams, so the tiebreaker won't come down to that. So yeah, you're right to point all that stuff out, and that puts it in good perspective. They're a team that they get their bye after the game against the Buccaneers at home. They get the Chiefs on the road, and then they get the Buccaneers at home, and then get their bye, and then get the Saints at home, and then the Ravens on the road. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out for them. It's going to be and they finish with the Browns and the Steelers on the road. So they need to knock out some of these wins here, and we'll get into this. Appreciate Alex filling in. We'll get Paul Denner coming in and joining us midway through the show to kind of get into the details of this game, Dave. But the Steelers, looks like they're going to go in kind of missing a couple guys again this week. The injury report, 3 guys missing practice on Thursday. And if history is our guide, it means probably all 3 aren't going to play. And the one that's probably, obviously to me, a little surprising. Actually, maybe 2 are a little surprising. Not surprised at all that Darius Hayward-Bay's not back, but a little surprised that Burnett isn't back yet. And, the LJ Fort thing kind of caught me, and I think most of us, out of the blue when he was added to the injury report.
Yeah, I'm not so much surprised about Hayward-Bay and Burnett, because I said a few weeks ago I won't be surprised if they're held out until after the bye week. So it would make sense that potentially that both those guys return after the bye week. L.J. Fort, I guess that ankle blew up on him. It was funny how adrenaline works, because I think L.J. Fort injured that ankle kind of in the first quarter there against the Atlanta Falcons. Taped that sucker up and went on to play a pretty damn good game. And in fact, if you go even further deeper into the tape on L.J. Fort, you see him do some very good things. Especially I highlighted one run on one of those stretch plays there where he does just a fantastic. I mean, how many times this year have we seen the Steelers over pursue on some of those pitches or some of those stretch runs to the outside, where the backside inside linebacker will over pursue a cutback lane opens up, and then the running back's 12, 13 yards down the field. We've seen that quite a bit here. And one instance there against the Falcons, we see Fort do a great job of mirroring the running back from the backside, on the backside of the defensive formation there, not cross the face. And in fact, at one point, L.J. Fort comes to a complete stop and fills that hole, slightly eludes a half-hearted blocking attempt. And then when the running back, I think it was Coleman maybe on that play there, but when the running back cuts back there, he's right there in the hole. So it wasn't only things, with him being in pass coverage and blitzing, which, he did a good job blitzing. I think Matthew Marksey has a film room up on him this morning on about 3 or 4 plays that he went after the quarterback on. So, but ankle injury aside, and I don't think L.J. Fort is going to suit up on this one. I think they're going to get Vince Williams back, as he's practiced fully both times so far this week with that hamstring injury that kept him out last week. even if Fort was healthy, how much burn was he going to get in this game against the Bengals? And probably the answer is not much.
Right. No, we both agreed that it was with Vince coming back, he was probably going to get the role and kind of see how things go from there. Still now, defense still going to be a little shorthanded with both. Excuse me. With both L.J. Fort and Burnett out, but.
Well, they've been doing without Burnett since the second week of the season.
Yeah. So we know what we're going to see out of the secondary, and so probably won't see Tyler Matakevich much either. And so it'll be Bostic and Williams on the inside, and we'll see when they go nickel and dime what packages they go with, and it'll be more of the same. And it's going to be interesting to find out. Having played the game in Pittsburgh, 1:00, not on great field conditions, but good weather conditions in a game where Matt Ryan didn't look all that effective and the Steelers were able to get pressure. Will we see that Steelers defense, or will we see the defense we saw the first 4 games of the season? It's and it's a big question mark. Can this defense put together back-to-back games? And a lot has been, Dave, obviously the big topic in terms of scheme. A lot was written, and a very good performance by Joe Haden. Absolutely give him his due, shutting Julio Jones out while it was still a game in the game last week. Will he get the job of patrolling, A.J. Green and following him around the field, or are the Bengals have enough weapons that the Steelers will leave Haden on the left side and go with the tandem of Burns and Sensabaugh and Sutton on the right side? You would think after last week's performance, the Steelers would absolutely have Haden follow Green around. But, we've seen stranger things, defensive calls from the Steelers defensive staff.
Well, you go back, and I did this before the first meeting between the Bengals and the Steelers last year. Joe Haden has an impressive career history in times that he's been asked to cover or follow a guy like A.J. Green around. I mean, a very impressive history. Now, if you rewind back to that Week 7 game last year, I think we were probably talking about, is Joe Haden going to shadow A.J. Green? Well, that did not happen. And even so, they held A.J. Green to, I think, 3 catches for 40-something yards in that game, and I think A.J. Green had like 2 catches early in that game or in the first quarter as well, too, and then really didn't get – if you remember, the Steelers had a nice, consistent pass rush in that game as well. So that's – you talk about rush and coverage going together. I think I think we saw, as much as I thought Joe Haden played a very good game against the Falcons, I think rush and coverage go hand in hand. And Alex and I talked extensively about how Keith Butler mixed up the blitz and the rush numbers and all like that in that game against the Falcons as well. I think he's going to have to do that again. I'm not convinced yet that Keith Butler can just send the regular front 4 up front and expect to get the needed pressure in that. So it goes back to what Mike Tomlin was asked about earlier in the week. What goes into deciding if a player is going to shadow another player, and he gave out this whole long drawn out excuse about. He was right. They do move A.J. Green around quite a bit. Now, I don't know if they're moving around any more than previous years because, they sure have not been shy about moving A.J. Green into the slot, in previous years and those kind of things. And then he also talked about who else would have to be guarded in those instances. Now, if you look at what the Bengals currently have, and we'll talk to Paul Dehner about this a little bit later, about what they're shaping up health-wise in this game. It does not look or sound like Tyler Kroft is going to suit up for this game for the Bengals. Okay, they obviously had lost Tyler Eifert a few weeks ago to an injury. Now, Kroft is a guy, a capable tight end, and he's had some success against the Steelers in the past. I don't think he's going to play. John Ross, the young wide receiver that they have, has been limited the last 2 days and missed last week and all, I think, with a groin. I'm not convinced John Ross is going to play in this game. If that's the case, if you're without John Ross and you're without Tyler Kroft, that severely hampers your offense here. That pretty much leaves you with A.J. Green, Tyler Boyd, and Josh Malone, who, by the way, Josh Malone has one catch on the season, just one. And then, of course, you have Mixon out of the backfield and all like that. What I wrote yesterday after Keith Butler talked, and of course, Keith Butler's not going to tip his hand and let us know who, if Joe Haden is going to follow Green around. I think, knowing what I know now, I would let Joe Haden follow A.J. Green around with the idea that I'm going to put a safety over the top of that most of the time, much in the same way that they did against Julio and the Falcons. And then I'm going to take my chances. I want Andy Dalton to beat me by throwing the ball to Boyd and or Malone. And I'm willing to take my chances that way. Now, what way will Mike Tomlin go? Who knows? And we're not going to find out until Sunday. But personally, that's how I would attack the Bengals this week with A.J. Green.
Yeah, it obviously hurts. Eifert's done for the year, and you just got Ross is Tyler Boyd finally looks like he's taking step forwards to be a quality receiver. They took him in the third round a couple of years ago, didn't get great production out of him. They're finally starting to see what they were hoping for. And I'm not suggesting he's going to be Antonio Brown, but Antonio Brown didn't become a starter until his third year. Not everybody has a Juju Smith-Schuster rookie type season and immediately is an impact player. And we've seen the slow start from James Washington on that front as well. So yeah, some of the if missing Ross is you throw in missing you say you're missing Eifert, Ross, and Kroft. Well, that's a big part of your pass catchers. So yeah, that's definitely to the Steelers' benefit. It'll be interesting to watch Joe Mixon. He's a guy. Look, I think people are probably familiar with his history off the field stuff that impacted his, people's thoughts of him coming into the draft and what happened with the Bengals taking him late in the first round. Look, we've seen that with a couple people. That's never brought up with Tyreek Hill anymore, domestic violence. That was why Tyreek Hill dropped to the fourth round of the Chiefs. And it'd be, I haven't seen enough of Mixon this year, but I thought he was a very good player coming into the draft. And I expect him to be an impactful player in the league for a while. And if you're a regular listener to the podcast, you know how I feel about Gio Bernard and the fact that he is an underutilized part of the Bengals and certainly part of the Bengals in their matchups against the Steelers. So, Dave, it'll be interesting to see, how these matchups work and the Bengals coming in a little bit shorthanded. And
Bernard's not playing in this game.
Yeah. He's definitely out?
Yeah, he's not playing in this game. He has not practiced, and he missed. He's got that, knee issue or whatnot. Yeah. He's not playing. So you could be without Bernard, Tyler Kroft, and potentially John Ross in this game. Those three, and if that's the case, your leading receiver is Boyd with 30 catches. He's not so much the field stretcher. He's been
a slot guy since he was drafted.
He's become more of a look. He's got, I think, 11 or 12, 13 of his catches have come on third or fourth down, and 11 of them moved the chains this year. So, and then Green obviously has 20. So 56 catches between Tyler Boyd and A.J. Green. From there, Eifert, who's done for the season, had 15 catches. He's third on the team in receiving. Bernard was fourth with 14 catches. Guess who is fifth in receptions, or tied for fifth on this team in receptions entering Week 6 for the Bengals?
Andy Dalton.
No. C.J. Uzomah, their number 3 tight end. Think of maybe. I wouldn't even put him. He's not as athletic as Xavier Grimble, but he's a better blocker than Xavier. I really liked. I don't know if you remember me talking about Uzomah coming out of Auburn. I really liked him. But he is what he is. He's a number 3, so he is potentially going to be your starting tight end this week. Joe Mixon, believe it or not, has all of 9 catches for 79 yards. Now, if I'm the Bengals and if I'm short all these guys, aren't you going to try to get the and not have him Gio Bernard too? Aren't you going to try to get a couple of these design screens in the football in the hand of Joe Mixon in this game?
Sure. I mean, you are limited on the weapons. It's a big advantage for the Steelers in this. And look, this is a Bengals offense that has done some good things, but the reality is it's the Bengals defense that's been making the big plays, that's been winning games for them of late. And we saw that, you go back to the Indianapolis game. Was that week 1, the first game of the season, close game, and the Colts driving for a kind of maybe a game-winning field goal, and the defense returns one for a touchdown, and they get another. And then last week against the Dolphins, I think it was, they're getting shellacked going into the fourth quarter. I think 17-3, and the defense gets a couple touchdowns and makes these big plays at the end of the game. So the offense hasn't, the points the Bengals have put up is a little bit misleading. I think they have 3 defensive touchdowns already through 5 games. So that's a big number. And along with that, they've gotten key turnovers in the fourth quarter, maybe 5, if I remember correctly, 5 in total in the fourth quarter. So they've been doing a lot of the work. So when we talk about the Bengals being impressive and playing good football, this is a team though that might be ripe for the taking. If the Steelers can avoid, if the Steelers can get ahead and then avoid making mistakes, which other teams have done late in games.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more. I think we probably teased this quite a bit here. I think the biggest conversation that you and I having is to talk about how is Haden going to be the guy to shadow AJ Green? And we'll see. I obviously don't know the answer to that question. I just threw out my thoughts out there, what I would do, and now it'll be interesting to see how the Steelers handle it. Now back to the injury report. We went over all that. It looks like Burnett, Fort, and Darius Hayward-Babel missed this game, so that should result in an inactive list where you only flop out from last week, probably LJ Fort for Vince Williams. Now, I don't understand the reasoning behind dressing the extra offensive lineman and Matt Filer over a guy in rookie Marcus Allen, for special teams, because unless you're really concerned about. To me, it would be better, and now that you have your offensive line back healthy, it'd be better to utilize Marcus Allen on the active game day roster than Matt Filer. But I'm sure there's some other minutiae, as Mike Tomlin likes to say, that goes into there. So as of right now, I would expect an identical inactive list to last week, with only Vince Williams and LJ Fort being flopped out there. Now, let's take a quick break, David, and then I want to talk a little bit about some running backs today, Antonio Brown on the other side here. Okay, what I wanted to get to here is talking about. I went back through and looked at the stats of James Conner through the first 5 games, and not just raw yards per carry stats and those kind of things. I looked at total touches. I looked at successful play rates. I looked at things like gains of 10 yards or more, gains of 20 yards or more, and I went back and I compared it to the first 5 games of Le'Veon Bell from last season. And yeah, Le'Veon Bell missed training camp and the preseason, yada yada. But it is night and day, an improvement of what they have statistically when it comes to James Conner in these first 5 games, as opposed to what they got from Le'Veon Bell. And someone will say, well, Dave, can you go back and find out, how about Le'Veon Bell in some previous seasons in the first 5 games? Well, when have we had Le'Veon Bell for the first 5 games of the season, right? Either A, healthy or not suspended. So, it's really, you'd have to go back quite a few years in order to find that. So I didn't bother pulling those up there. So I think what I was trying to convey in this post, and, it's not rocket science if you watch these first 5 games, is James Conner has been more than capable at filling Le'Veon Bell's shoes so far. Now, here's the kicker. In week 6 and week 7 of last season, Le'Veon Bell against the Kansas City Chiefs and against the, who was it? The Bengals after that? Yeah, after, week 6 and 7 last season, Le'Veon Bell put up almost 400 total yards from scrimmage in those two games. And that's obviously when he took his big step forward into him having the great season that he had last season. So this will, and let's face it, this could potentially be, depending on what happens with Le'Veon Bell, this could be the last full load that James Conner gets, this season. Now, based on what you've seen and we've heard, and now we can add some Ben Roethlisberger quotes into this from this past week. Ben was asked multiple times, how he would handle James Conner, or how he thinks the team should handle James Conner once Le'Veon Bell comes back. And Ben, didn't mince any words. I wouldn't push James Conner to the side. How would you handle this? And I think Bob Labriola wrote about this morning on Steelers.com as well, too, how he would get the leaders together and blah, blah, blah. To me, it sounds like, I'm not sure that kind of stuff happens, I guess is what I'm trying to say. A lot about what Bob Labriola wrote about. Maybe it does. But how would you handle this?
I thought his idea was, look, the person who's going to be in Labriola's article, which I also read this morning, was just to get a sense, so people can have a sense of it. He was saying if he were in charge, and obviously he's not suggesting he is in any way, and they don't listen to him, and the team's lucky for that. So with all the caveats, now he being in charge, this would be Kevin Colbert and Art Rooney, and who would be in this conversation. And he said I'd first get Marquise Pouncey and Cam Hayward and just say what's your feeling and what's the feeling of the locker room about bringing Bell back? Is he going to be welcomed with open arms, and how do you feel about it? And then he said he'd go to Ben Roethlisberger for obvious reasons and Ramon Foster because he's the player rep and have the similar conversation. And then he said he'd go to Bell himself and he'd go to Tomlin himself and say, can they put things behind him and do what's best for the team and agree to, that they'll move forward that way. And look, if you're running any organization and you have a situation like this, there is no doubt canvassing the leaders of the organization and having their input and making them feel that they're part of the decision-making process is almost always a positive thing. So, I have no doubt that Mike Tomlin's heavily involved in the conversation, but I think it would be wise to not canvass the team, but canvass the specific players that he mentioned for obvious reasons. Those are respected guys who would have a sense of that what's going on. So I don't have any problem with
but realistically, these players all the time say, now it was a little bit surprising to hear some of the offensive linemen say some of the things that they said, after Bell didn't report. I think it was more of why didn't he let us know? But on the flip side, how many times do you hear players say, look, that man's, this is a business. We respect him because and I understand all the angst from the fan base about Le'Veon Bell, but I also can look at it.
But when you say the angst for the fan base, because I'm not sure I've seen angst. I've seen a lot of people who are just very, very black and white. It's screw him, he screwed the team, don't bring him back. Or
that's my definition of angst.
Okay, and then the other side is, he's the best back in football. You got to, he helps you win a chance to win a Super Bowl, so definitely bring him back.
How many people have you seen profess the latter? Outside of media.
What's that?
Outside of media.
Just as many as the former. I don't, I'm certainly most of my friends feel that way.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. Of course, I don't have friends, but but I'm not seeing it. I only see on the site and on the Twitter machine.
I'm going to run a Twitter poll right now while we're speaking. Should the Steelers welcome black and white? Should the Steelers welcome Le'Veon Bell back, or should the Steelers move on from Le'Veon Bell?
What do you think you're going to get? It's not even. I don't think you're even going to get close to 50-50.
Okay, I think it would be relatively close to 50-50. So
right.
We'll people can check it out at David M. Todd. You can check it out. It'll been up by the time you hear this. It'll been up for a couple hours, and that's probably enough to get a decent sample size. So All right, so
but I mean, even if they do canvas, what do you think the leaders are going to say? I mean, quite honestly, if you went,
Joe, I absolutely 100% think guys like Cam Hayward and Marquise Pouncey will give a completely honest answer. That honest answer may be we want him back, but I don't think Cam Hayward's going to go in there and say, "Here's what I'm supposed to say." You think Marquise Pouncey's going to say, "I think here's what I'm supposed to say" to Colbert and Rooney? They're going to say that.
I think they're going to. I don't think they're going to say. Here, what I'm getting at is I don't think any of them are going to say we don't want him back.
I don't think they're going to say it either because I don't believe it. I think there might be some guys in the locker room who don't want him back. There might be a view that he shouldn't just get the starting job. But I mean, why wouldn't you? If your goal is to win a Super Bowl, which is what the offensive linemen seem to be talking about at the beginning of the season, why wouldn't you want him back?
Right.
Because he screwed you the first 6 weeks of the season? It seems a little bit petty.
You cannot have too many good players, and that's what my thought on this whole thing is. Do I like the way he's handled? Let me ask you this: do you think Le'Veon Bell has had second thoughts about this?
How can you not? I mean, just as any individual, none of these things they're not black and white answers. So if you don't have second thoughts, then you're probably not thinking deeply about it.
I bet he's had second thoughts as well too, because look, I understood the whole. I'm not going to beat the whole guaranteed money horse and all like that, but he was going to get the first 3 years of that money. Guaranteed, virtually guaranteed, not guaranteed. What I'll pay you the cheeseburger tomorrow, whatever. He was going to get the first 3 years of that money. So, he is. What's going to happen? Well, I mean, how would you handle this now with Connor and Bell, though? Okay, I mean, make no mistake about it. Connor is giving you. He has put up six plays of 20 yards or more. Okay, yep. Three receptions and 3 runs. Le'Veon Bell through the first 5 games last year had one. Okay, and I think he ended up with 11, maybe 10 or 11 on the season. Talking about Bell, successful run rates first 5 games, and James Conner. This could stand to be a little bit higher, 46.2%. Le'Veon Bell through the first 5 games last year, 38.8%. When you look at, you want to look at that. I know it's still early, but I think you and I talked about this maybe earlier in the week. I think Alex and I did as well too. 10.86 yards per reception. You know that I went and looked at this on Pro Football Reference yesterday, I think. Through the first 5 games of a regular season dating back to, I think, 1990, James Conner's average for running backs only with 20 or more receptions at 5 games through the season, he is 14th overall in average. That's a lot of damn running backs with a lot of 20 receptions or more. In other words, and we'll see if that. I mean, obviously he's not going to carry a 10.86 number all season long if he played. You wouldn't think, but I mean that's quite an impressive number in itself. There, his run success rate 41.7%. His receiving success rate, which obviously you would think, well, it's easier to have a successful play if you catch the football than running the football. That's an obvious. It's 63.6%, whereas last year with Le'Veon Bell on his catches it was 48.1%. Now, no gain plays on plays that resulted in either no yardage gain or lost yardage. The two are almost most identical in percentages there. But once again, when you get to the 10-plus yard plays and the 20-plus yard plays, James Conner is lights out ahead of the pace that Le'Veon Bell was last year. But let me preface all that once again by going back. This is not a hate fest on Le'Veon Bell because as I said, week 6 and week 7 last year, he put up almost 400 yards in total offense. Now, do we expect him to walk in the building after the bye and put up 200 yards. I don't think it's not possible. But all that what I just threw at you right there, how are you handling these two running backs if Le'Veon Bell reports on Monday or Tuesday of the bye week, has the entire bye week, the next week of practice, and then you go into how are you even going to handle the pay with him during the roster exemption time? Because they're not.
Okay, so I don't think you pay him in the roster exemption.
Well, then he's not going to sign. Would you go in and not? I mean, are you going to go in?
So what's he going to do then? To wait 10 weeks and then wait 12 weeks? I mean, of course he's going to sign.
If you're not going to get paid.
Well, then you just wait 2 more weeks and you don't get paid 2 more weeks and you don't get paid 2 more weeks and you don't if they're not going to pay you, there's nothing you can do about it. You're either going to accept that. That's part of part of the deal of you sitting out, or you're not. But they don't have to pay him, and if they don't pay him, he's got zero leverage.
Do you think the Steelers would do that though? That's what you would do. Do you think the Steelers would when he shows up, sign that tag, say, "Look, we're gonna, you can come back on this roster, but during this roster exemption, you're not going to get any pay."
I mean, that's why you're supposed to show up for training camp. You don't get paid during training camp, so this is his training camp. I don't know what they'll do. It's got a little bit of unknown territory, but all the guys show up at St. Vincent and do the time 2 weeks up there. They don't get paid for that, so I don't know why it should be any different with Le'Veon Bell.
All right, so that's what you would do for the first 2 weeks, okay? Is you would not pay him. How are you handling him? Assuming he does everything that he asks you to do, assuming he's in shape, blah blah blah.
Yeah. So I do think you have to play it by ear. So I don't think they should go in with a formula. But like I said on Monday, I probably wouldn't start him the first game back with Le'Veon Bell. I would with James Conner the first game Bell's back. I would probably start James Conner. Now I wouldn't start James Conner just to hand him the ball on first down and then have Le'Veon Bell play the rest of the game.
Would you let Le'Veon Bell only have because they're using Ridley really, really smart right now.
For one game, they did.
Right. Well, they
played a game before, so.
He should have four or five touches a game just to give the Connor a break and all like that. So I guess what I'm getting at is, would you use Bell in the same because running backs, quote unquote, can get into a rhythm and all, and Connor, are you going to I guess what I'm getting at is, how much are you going to disrupt the offensive line and James Conner's rhythm?
I'm going to do what I think is best for the Steelers to win the football game. And this was the conversation that Dabo Sweeney had with his quarterback down at Clemson. And the kid said, I didn't do anything to lose my job. And the Dabo Sweeney said, my job is to give Clemson the best chance to win the football game. And that's the decision I have to make. So Mike Tomlin's going to get to watch Le'Veon Bell practice for 2 weeks, and he's going to have a hell of a lot more information than he has today or than he's going to have on Sunday or whatever. So that's going to play a major factor in how I would make my decision. This isn't about James Conner being disrespected, okay? It's nothing like that. This is the goal. These are professional athletes. There's no disrespect. Everybody's out there with a common goal, and I have no doubt James Conner will pull on the rope however he's asked to pull on the rope. Whether that's 2 carries a game or 20 carries a game, I expect the same effort for him because James Conner's done a great job of putting himself in the position to be the Steelers starting running back in 2019, regardless of what else happens or who they may draft or what, how things go with all of this stuff. So, if I'm Conner, I just continue to be a good soldier. If I'm Le'Veon Bell, I come in and give my all and try and perform well so I get that contract. And if I'm Mike Tomlin, I look and evaluate just like I evaluated Artie Burns and Cody Sensabaugh and Cam Sutton and decide guys who are playing the best are going to play. And that's how I would do it. I would not be carrying baggage around because Bell sat out, he doesn't deserve to play, or because Conner played first. If Bell gives us a better chance because we think he's a better back, then he gets to play. And that's it's business. We're going to try to win football games.
David, I'm such a messed up individual now in my life that I do not like things out of order one iota. The more regimented I can stay during the day, the happier I am. Okay, and that's not very happy, by the way, but But I guess what I'm getting at is if it's not broke, I'm not a fan of fixing things. Okay, oftentimes I don't like to fiddle with things that are running smoothly. I have in the past, and 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work out that well. Now, with that said, I think how I would be more concerned, about as long as let's say this week James Conner has. And this is one of the things that we're going to get in with Paul Denner here in a little bit here. There is an opportunity, I think, in this game, as long as the Steelers don't mess it up at the beginning here and get down 14-3, for James Conner to have another nice game. All right. What if he does? What if he goes for another $150 in total yardage, a touchdown or two, and the Steelers win this game? It's going to be super hard to send him back after, not handling the lion's share of the carries coming out of the bye week, regardless of what Bell. And then I guess what I'd be most worried about is how the heck is Le'Veon Bell going to act if A, you don't pay him during this roster exemption, and B, if he comes back and he's getting 4 or 5 touches a game.
Well, that's why you talk to him like a man, like everything else. If you don't think he can act like a man, whatever, and he's not going to handle it, then, you maybe you take a different course of action. Maybe you work harder to try to trade him. I don't know, but I mean, I'm just not going to come in with a predetermined view of things based on things I don't know about yet. I'm going to wait and see what happens on Sunday. What if James Conner has another, the Steelers actually have a lead and he has 7 carries for 22 yards and he misses a blitz pickup and he fumbles again. But maybe your chance is equally plausible that he has 150 yards from scrimmage. Well, it's going to be another data point that helps me make my decision. So I'm going to use those data points. I'm not going to be boxed in to giving an answer to something 2 weeks later if I'm Mike Tomlin. I'm sure as heck I'm not going to make that decision. But like Labriola wrote, if I'm Mike Tomlin, I also am involved in those conversations to make sure the team is ready to accept him back and move forward. And I realize some of those guys act like mature punks, and it's hard to imagine them acting like adults. But the reality is, you go down that offensive line: Ali Villanueva, Ramon Castro, Marquise Pouncey, David DeCastro, Marcus Gilbert. Those guys are adults. They're men. They're trying to win football games. Antonio Brown's going to welcome back because Antonio Brown plays the same game that Le'Veon Bell plays. So it's I just don't think this is going to be a big factor. And by the way, the poll I asked, would you welcome Le'Veon Bell back? Not the players. Try to put yourself on the team. I had 2 choices, black and white, for sure or no chance. Right now, 120 votes, for sure, 64%, no chance, 36%. So I think it's a little different than maybe you thought it was out there.
I don't know. We'll see how this thing matures here. I would be a little bit surprised there, but because what I see is all the
because the vocal minority is the vocal minority is what I mean. It's Twitter, right?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, all I see is the screw him portion. Okay. Has he hurt his value?
Yes, I think he's hurt his value. Now I think he's hurt his value, and he has a chance to probably get it all the way back. But I would be surprised if he did well enough and played enough to get it all the way back. So I think there will be permanent damage, but it doesn't. There's an opportunity. If he's back for whatever it is, 8, 9, 10 games, whatever the number is, if he's back to recoup that, but it would surprise me.
All right. After this season, what's the minimum you take in a trade for him? I still don't think he's going to get traded, but would you take a 4th for him now?
Yeah, I would take a 4th because a 4th today, in my mind, a 4th today is the same as a 3rd next year. So I'd take a 4th today. Some of this, again, depends on his attitude and what his desires are. If he's, look, I'm all in for the Steelers, no matter, I'll use me however you want to use me, I'm going to be a good team player, then I wouldn't go past that. Unless he expressed discontent and desire to leave, I would not take less than a 4th.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could be persuaded. I've said a third all along because that's the value. People think that you a player like that leaves, you automatically get a third, the highest pick. It all goes into that formula, what you sign and how it cancels out, blah blah blah. So getting the pick in hand is a lot better than waiting on value, right, on a formula. So even though I don't think that he's going to get traded, if I could get a fourth now, I would be maybe tempted to do that, depending obviously, of course, on his attitude. I don't think he's going to come back and be personally. I don't think he's going to come back and be model employee number 6543276. You know what I'm saying?
You think he's gonna come in and cause problems?
I think he's going to be a little bit vocal, I think he's going to be a little bit vocal if he doesn't come back and get what he thinks he should get as far as carry wise. Heck, maybe he doesn't, but I mean, I think by him not playing and not being able to show that he still can do the things that he did last year, that could potentially hurt his value.
Yeah, I agree. But just to argue the other side of that, I mean, if you're arguing against Le'Veon Bell, the whole point was you didn't want to play because you didn't want to get beat up because you didn't want the big contract. So you can't argue, well, I want more carries now. We're giving you your wish. You're not getting as many carries. You're not getting beat up.
Right, but that's why I go back to wondering if he's second guessing this thing.
Yeah. Well, if a guy's going to flip flop, then he just looks silly. But we should probably get to
one other thing before we get to our guest here, or our picks, or whatever we're doing here next. After this season, second year of James Conner, are you doing your damnedest to sign him to the long-term deal next offseason?
My guess at this point is no. To a big long-term deal is no, but I reserve the right to change that over the course of the next 10 games.
So in other words, you're not going to make that, and you don't have to obviously make that decision right now. But
I'm not going to base it off of 2 or 3 very good games. No.
Right, but I mean, could you see an instance where that happens?
Yeah, I mean, I could see him getting a $5-6 million deal, 5 or 6. He's not getting a $10 million deal.
I don't know. Would you be tipped? Because look, I mean, go back and remember what the Steelers did with Antonio Brown and all like that. Would you be tempted to at least pay him more than Devontae Freeman?
Hell no, $8.5 million a year based on 3 games from what I've seen.
No, I'm saying, could you at the end of the season, you just said you don't want to make the decision now. You want to hold off judgment for the next until after the season. Could you see a situation where he gets more than a Devontae Freeman?
I cannot see a situation where he gets more than $8.5 million a year. No.
Okay.
Can you?
I can, yeah, I can. Depending on what the guaranteed money is and all like that, I can see a situation where
go right back into the draft and get the next guy. Obviously, I mean, $8.5 million. You're gonna, $8.5 million.
If you don't have to tie up a lot of guaranteed money with him, I might could consider it. But once again, I'm not making that decision. I'm with you. I'm not going to make that decision. But I could look. I mean. The like it or not, the price tag is going up on running backs. I mean, Devontae Freeman might seem mighty cheap here in another calendar year, right?
Well, I don't know that he does, but maybe some comparables might. I mean, David Johnson, Zeke, Zeke's coming up and he's going to get paid for sure. Kareem Hunt's still a far away. Kamara's still a little bit away. We saw how good Saquon Barkley is last night, and he's still a mile away, but he's picked second in the draft. He's going to be making $10 million, just on his rookie deal. So, yeah, I mean, well, look, we knew we were in a dip, because Peterson made $12 million a while ago. So we knew we were in a dip. And now, all the good young backs are getting to the point where, it's time to pay the piper.
What are you seeing out of James Conner, versus expectations, and we're only 5 games in, and there's been a couple where he really hasn't gotten the football because of game situation. Where are you on James Conner right now?
I think he's a very good back. I like the way he hits holes. I love the way he runs. He's a little quicker than I thought, a little bit more elusive. And we saw that, we've seen the missed tackles number. He's, I think, leading the league in missed tackles, on guys who have, a minimum of whatever it is, 25 or 30 touches. That's that kind of stat will get you paid big numbers in the long term if you prove that over a season. So I'm not surprised by his toughness. I'm not surprised by, his aggressiveness. I'm slightly surprised by his elusiveness and maybe what goes with that. I think he's a little bit lighter and maybe just a touch quicker and more elusive than I would have given him credit for. I didn't think he was I watched him play at Pitt. I thought he was a good back. I thought he could play in the NFL, but he's been a touch quicker and more elusive than I anticipated.
I think he's become a little bit better receiver and a little bit better pass blocker. We've known. I broke down quite. I knew he was an explosive run guy up the gut and could be that in the NFL level. Now, a full-time running back that can touch the football 28 times a game, I wasn't convinced he could be that. But he hasn't shown us this season that he can't be that. So
right.
and his blocking has definitely taken
I figured that comes with a year of experience. The guy played some defensive end in college. He's a tough kid. They talked about his he hasn't been that special teams player they talked about for obvious reasons why. But toughness was never a question, and so his ability to pass block was just in my mind, was just a matter of learning the system and reading the right keys. I didn't ever think that was going to be a problem.
All right, what's next? We're going to do our picks. We're going to talk about, or we're going to do our guest, or what are we doing here?
Let's get to Paul, and we'll come back and do our picks.
Yes. Hello.
Hey, Paul. This is Dave from the Terrible Podcast. How are you?
Oh, hey. How are you? Are you
done, or do you still need a few more minutes?
No, I'm good. Hold on. I'm just walking off the practice field now, actually. So
awesome.
It'll all be good for you. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm good. I'll take a seat right here.
I've got your Twitter handle, and what else do you want me to put in there? And the intro.
Cincinnati.com.
Yep.
Cincinnati.com is the site. So yeah, just Twitter handle Cincinnati.com. That's we're good to go.
Okay, fantastic. Well, appreciate you joining us again as always.
No problem.
All right, we're recording, David. We're good to go.
Okay. Okay, as our schedule has bounced around this week, we've had beat writers coming in on Wednesday and Friday. Obviously, Friday, a big matchup, AFC North in Cincinnati. Steelers try to continue their dominance of the Bengals in Cincinnati. Really, the winners of their last 5 overall against the Bengals, but the Bengals, of course, on top of the AFC North coming into this one. And we're pleased to be joined by Paul Denner Jr., who's been with us the past couple of years. Writes for Cincinnati.com. You can follow him on Twitter at his name, which is at Paul Denner, DEHNERJR. Paul, as always, thanks for being with us again here on the Terrible Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Paul, coming into the season, kind of mixed expectations for, I think, the Ravens and the Bengals for a lot of people. I think people expected the Browns to be better, maybe not competitive. Maybe they are now. I think people thought the Steelers were the class of the division, and obviously they came out of the chute in the wrong direction. The Bengals have looked overall kind of very good. If you dig into it, kind of some late defensive, fourth quarter turnovers and defensive touchdowns have really sealed some victories for them, and now they're a bit banged up on offense. How good do you think this team is versus some of the playoff teams that we've seen from the Bengals in the past?
Yeah, I think that they're on par with some of those playoff teams that we saw. Certainly, now I would say, the 11 to 14 Bengals, not the 2015 group that was really on fire out of the gates. I don't think they're there yet. They're the second youngest team in the NFL. They've spent the last 2 years rebuilding the roster, and I think they're finally starting to reap the rewards of that because they're young, and last year they were bad young, and this year I call they're good young. Their young guys have experience, and a lot of them they went through and took their bumps and bruises and learned how the league works last year. And now you're seeing them finish games, which is the thing that they haven't done, and certainly Steelers fans know all about that. watching what happened in December, where the Steelers were able to come back. But this year, the Bengals are finishing those games. They're really playing well down the stretch, both on offense and defense. Actually, oddly, if the Bengals on offense in the fourth quarter of games this year literally punted on first down every single time and never ran an offensive possession, they would still be winning in fourth quarter scoring this year, 21-18. Their defense has scored 3 times and they've only let up 18 total points. They've finished strong, although their defense has not been great the rest of the games. And their offense, for the most part, has been humming pretty good, but we wonder what they'll look like because 6 quarters without Tyler Eifert, they haven't been as good as they were prior. But, really, as far as the first 5 games go, they couldn't have asked for much more for a young team immediately taking a pretty big step.
I'm really bummed for Tyler Eifert. I mean, guy's been so good and such a red zone threat when he's been able to play, and just to see another, I don't want to say catastrophic injury, but another, serious injury. It's a drag. And the Bengals come in here offensively. It looks like, maybe no Ross, maybe no Croft, maybe no Gio. Do they have what, look, we all know about AJ Green, and Tyler Boyd seems to have taken that step forward. And I'm a big Mixon fan, but obviously they're going to come in shorthanded offensively.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the tight end thing is a bigger issue than maybe people realize. That Bill Lazor is taking over full-time as the offense coordinator, and it's the first time since Andy Dalton's been here that they truly gutted it and started a brand new system. Because before, Jay Gruden was here, and then Hugh Jackson took over, and then Ken Zampese for him. Those 3 all kept the bones of the original Jay Gruden system. This was trash it.
And Lazor came in during the season last year, didn't he? Was that right?
He did. They let go of Ken Zampese 2 games in and brought Lazor in, but he was working with the old parts. He was driving the old car, and they traded it in and decided to try to buy a new one. And it has looked really good, but a lot of what they've done is really done a nice job of utilizing multiple tight end sets. So when that room takes hits like they had with Croft and Eifert, it stole a lot of what they were doing. They really were utilizing the depth they had there with versatility in throwing out of it, in running out of it, because when Eifert was on the field, teams were switching to nickel and they would run at him in that, and it was really proving troublesome for opponents. So with Croft and Eifert down, they're down to their 2017 7th-round pick Mason Schreck backing up C.J. Uzomah. And they signed Matt Langle off the Texans practice squad, a journeyman who was here a couple of years ago. That's not as dynamic as what they had going before, so they've had to utilize other parts. But with John Ross, still he's working on his groin injury. It's easy to wonder where if they have enough weaponry to hum the way that they were through those first few games, because they really had something special going at that point.
Paul, do you expect John Ross to play? I think he's been limited, and it's unusual. I think usually doesn't don't they just usually like those players to practice, those younger players? Talking about Marvin Lewis, practice a couple of times before playing him. I mean, it doesn't sound like he's going to go this week.
Yeah, honestly, that's one of those where I'd expect questionable. I mean, that's not a. If he would have been a do not practice either of those 2 days, I would count him out. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think there's a chance he could play for sure, because he's been limited, but he's been out there in full gear and participating. But I think it's going to be close. Maybe they'll want to wait one more week with a groin injury and not take the chance of him re-aggravating it. I'd anticipate a game time decision. Now that's before we see the injury report, but that's probably my best guess.
A lot of talk, I should say, this week about Joe Haden and Willie or Willie not shadow A.J. Green around. We had the same talk, I think, before the Week 7 game last year, because I think Haden ended up missing the second meeting between the two teams, and come to find out, Haden stayed on the left side that entire game and did not shadow A.J. Green. Now, coming off of this week with Haden shadowing Julio Jones for the Falcons, the talk's back on Willie or should he shadow A.J. Green, but Mike Tomlin was quick to point out that they're doing even more so than the last few years, doing a better job of moving A.J. Green around in the slot more. I haven't been able to notice the more factor there. I've always thought they moved him around. What are you doing if you're the Steelers this week, knowing that the Bengals could be without Ross and obviously without Croft? Are you going to let Haden shadow A.J. Green around, or do you just take your chances?
I think unless Haden is comfortable and willing to move into the slot, I don't know how much you're going to do that. I mean, you're seeing A.J. Green in there 40% of the time. I mean, Mike Tomlin's not lying to you. It's exponentially more that they've been using him in there, and not are they just using him in there more. They're using him in there when they really want to hit big shots with him. I mean, he was scoring almost all of his touchdowns early in the season were coming out of that slot position. And when you've got that they feel like they can get mismatches in there and really do things they want, and keep. There's just there's a different ball game in there, and AJ has proven himself to be really good at it. I think if you follow the Pro Football Focus numbers, I haven't looked this week, but coming into this past week, yards per route run out of the slot, he was 2 yards per route more than anybody else in the league. They were using him to hit deep balls in there, and I that's not going to change. I think they love the way they feel like they can hide him in there. So, regardless, if he does follow him, that's certainly fine if he wants to go left or right. But unless he's willing to go into the slot and move in there, some of the majority of the biggest plays that they try to run with A.J. Green are going to happen from the inside.
What are you seeing from Andy Dalton this year versus years in the past? I mean, we assume guys are fully developed when you're at this point in your career, and Andy Dalton's he's had a successful career, obviously not to the level people in Cincinnati or he may like on the top side, but he's been a good NFL quarterback. Does the new system show you anything different about Andy Dalton?
Yeah, he's really. I think he's played really from the moment he showed up in camp this year. I thought he had his best camp. I wasn't alone in thinking that. Andy felt that way too. He seems. I think Bill Lazor really understands what Andy does best and how to run an offense through that. Not enough credit can go to Bill and Alex Van Pelt, who the Bengals feel like they kind of stole from Green Bay. And Aaron Rodgers was none too pleased that they were able to do that and voice his opinion about that in the offseason. I think that combination has really done a nice job of helping Andy's game go back to the next level, sort of like you saw in 2015. But in so many ways, that goes back to just having the pieces around him. I mean, the emergence of Tyler Boyd, you can't say enough of that. He's always been an effective quarterback when he's able to draw up the matches around him. The last 2 years, he's got that skill to create those mismatches, but he didn't have pieces that could win one-on-one battles enough. They just weren't winning. Then without Eifert in particular, and Tyler Boyd had a down year last year. John Ross was hurt all year. Brandon LaFell was not winning much on the outside. They didn't have those other guys that Andy Dalton can create matchups for or see where the winning matchups are. He's so good at that. It's really what he does best. I think people don't understand that enough. And that's why when he has had weapons, they've gone from okay to great, not okay to good, because that's really where he thrives. And so, that goes back to our conversation earlier about no Ross, no Eifert. There's repercussions for that. But he has looked different. He has been more effective. He's been more effective when he's had pressure. He's been almost as good as he's ever been as a quarterback under pressure, making improv plays that have been huge plays. That's a big difference this year too. So you're seeing that maturation in that way, and he's playing some of the best football of his career, and they've put a whole lot on his plate in the process.
You look at the running back position, and we've seen all these really, really, sensational young backs. And we saw what Kamara and Hunt did last year, and we know what Gurley and Barkley last night, and David Johnson and Zeke and Bell and the rest of them. And Dalvin Cook and Mixon came out, and the injuries and been banged up. Is Joe Mixon going to be in that class of running back?
AJ Green will tell you he already is. He's been banging that drum for a while now that he thinks Joe Mixon is in the same class as Bell and Gurley and some of those guys that you just mentioned. And when they've given him space and room, he's proven it. He looks like the real deal. One thing they did last week against Miami, they stuck with the run game despite going down 17-0 into the second half. They kept pounding it, and Joe Mixon had 11 rushes for 17 yards, and then his second round of 11 rushes went for 77 yards and a reception that helped swing the momentum big time. With those other guys down, they're scheming up for him. They're basing things around him. They want him to be the bell cow. They said that way back in Indianapolis at the Combine. Bengals director of play personnel, Duke Hogan, said Joe Mixon is going to be our bell cow back, and they're building around him. And, they want him to be their version of Ezekiel Elliott the same way, which is because they have a new offensive line coach, Frank Pollock, who built around him in Dallas. That's how they view it. And it's played out that way so far outside of the injury that had him miss a couple of weeks, that he's been effective and he's looked every bit the part.
When you go through this defense, Paul, player by player, I mean, it's impressive. I mean, you look at guys like William Jackson III, Jesse Bates is a guy a lot of Steelers fans really liked coming out as well, too. We're kind of upset that both those guys weren't ultimately drafted by the Steelers. But when you look at the way this defense has played through the first 5 games, specifically against the run and specifically against runs between the tackles, it looks like they're very vulnerable. Now, I know they haven't had Vontaze Burfict to start the season, but he's got his feet back in there and back wet again. Preston Brown, I know he's been kind of banged up, I think, with an ankle injury. Is the success that teams have against them running the football up the gut a byproduct of just the linebackers not playing well, or are you seeing something else up front with these guys?
No, I mean, that's the biggest part of it. I think if you're looking at the defense, it's clearly the weakest position group. Their DBs, you mentioned them, and obviously their pass rushing they have as disruptive forces as anybody in the league up front. But yeah, I think teams see that they can expose. I mean, Carolina is the most obvious example. They run for 230 yards. Christian McCaffrey goes bonkers, as does Cam Newton, and that's the reason that the Bengals have that only loss, because their linebackers were lost, misfitting runs, not getting to the right spots. They were without Preston Brown and Vontaze Burfict that game, and they're 2 veterans, and they had a bunch of young kids out there that really didn't know what they were doing much. And that's definitely part of the problem. It's definitely a reason why teams have been able to run on them. They need Vontaze Burfict to come back and stay on the field for any number of reasons and be productive and just be a good player. They need that more than ever. It's kind of the last piece that they feel like they really need to help this team really come full circle, because it's clearly their biggest weakness right now.
Do you expect how do you expect them to pay attention to Antonio Brown? Do you expect anybody? They're normally not a follow around team, I don't think, and normally Drake Kirkpatrick stays on that left side, and I assume William Jackson will be on the right side. Of course, the safety's over. Are they just going to give him the normal bracket stuff and take their chances elsewhere?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you go by past history, they didn't follow Julio Jones around. They just held down their side. They don't, William, I mean, as you guys, I think, know, had his kind of breakout last year was in the way he played against Antonio Brown. And so they like that matchup, but I don't think it's a thing where they're going to go changing what they do. They haven't done that in the past. Terrell Austin said he's done it before in the new defensive coordinator in his history, but that doesn't sound like something he's interested in doing right now with this group. He feels like, he likes what all his corners can bring and isn't going to go disrupting things by moving them around. What
worries you the most defensively in this matchup, Bengals versus Steelers on Cincinnati side of the ball defensively? What's worst case here?
Yeah, they've let up so many long drives this year, and they've also been hit over the top. I mean, they were lucky last week. They seem to turn the corner, but it's the Dolphins don't exactly trot out the most potent offense in football, and maybe their defensive line turned the corner. But the real problem has been they cannot get off the field on third downs. They just haven't been able to do it all year. They were dead last in the NFL before this past week against the Dolphins. It's something Austin has said. They're working on it every week. They're working on it. They think they're getting better. They think they're getting closer to fixing it, and it just hasn't happened. Atlanta, I believe, converted 71% of their third downs. I mean, it's absurd, and it just, for a team that has pass rushers and has cover guys, shouldn't be that way. And in particular, they've let up a lot of third and longs, which are just backbreakers. They gave up so many points on drives this year where they had a 3rd and 7 or longer converted because they've just been demoralizing. So that, to me, that's it. This defense, that's where it's come down to all year. They've been good in most ways, except third downs have been truly disastrous for them.
That Falcons Bengals game, that was like an arena game. I tell you, I'm sure a lot of fans were entertained by it. There wasn't a lot of defense in that one, though.
No, I'll tell you what, though. The one thing about that game, just sorry to jump in, but that's really important, is the Bengals to win that game had a 16-play, 75-yard drive. I mean, that had 2 fourth-down conversions and the last-second 12-yard touchdown pass from Dalton to Green. This team really came out of that game with a sense of belief that they can finish games, that they are always going to find a way to win. And that really means a lot in this league, as you guys know. And it's so been the reason they've lost, in particular to the Steelers over the recent years, is not really believing that they can go out there and do it. And that's, I think, why they feel like this week can be different, because they've proven it. Not only what happened against Miami, but then that drive against Atlanta, I think, was truly monumental in the development of a young team.
Do you expect to see any nonsense on Sunday?
Of course. It's Bengals Steelers. How could there not be nonsense? Look, Vontaze Burfict took what happened last year personal with Juju Smith-Schuster, and the celebration that Juju did, essentially, where it was mocking the concussion they gave to Vontaze Burfict, did not sit well here. It did not sit well with 55, and I think that he is going to be looking for number 19 on Sunday, and I think that's going to be something important to track. If he can contain it to keeping it something legal between the lines, all is fair in football. If it goes beyond that, it will just be another case of putting your personal garbage above your team. And I think that's going to be an interesting thing to watch, to see how Vontaze Burfict handles the way he feels about Juju Smith-Schuster out there.
All right, who you got? Big game. I mean, we looked at the Bengals schedule coming up the next 3-4 weeks. They've got a really tough schedule. If they get this one, they got wins over the Steelers and the Ravens. They're in a good place. A loss, and it's a tough road to hoe for a little while.
Yeah, I joked around on our podcast when we do our predictions, saying I literally hate myself for doing this because it goes against everything I believe in that I'm a big like trend guy, I like things that seem that always make sense, that always fall into the line, no matter how much things change, they seem the same. That's what the series has been. But I think I have the Bengals winning. I have them winning 23-20. So I do think that what's dogged them so much in this series is they don't believe that they can win. And I think they truly do believe that they can win, and they have been playing like it this year. I have 23-20 Bengals, and but always an adventure. I can already feel it going the other way. But it's just I'm trying to keep it to football and not let those trends take over.
Paul, man, always great having you on. Thanks so much. And, our listeners love it. We love it. Thanks for the great insights, and we'll look forward to catching up with you later in the season.
Yeah. Anytime. Thanks, guys.
All right, Dave, let's get into the picks for the week. And which I should probably run another poll whether our listeners will give me the benefit of the doubt, since I didn't get my pick in last night, but knowing that I pick against Eli Manning and the Giants every week, should I get the benefit of the doubt of going against the Giants, who looked terrible again last night? You had the Eagles and took the man again, as you have on regularly on Thursday night so far this year.
Free money. If only it was that easy.
That's gonna be lightning up your butt sometimes.
Yeah, when is it not?
Starting next Thursday. Yeah, look, I mean, I was on Twitter during the game last night and after the game a little bit this morning, having the debate about whether the Giants made a mistake in taking Saquon Barkley versus one of the quarterbacks. And the answer for me is very simply, Saquon Barkley is a great back, and I thought he was going to be a great back, and so far he's looked like a great back. And the question isn't really about Saquon Barkley. The question is more about, in 5 years, Saquon Barkley is going to be done with the Giants and be up for his renewal at whatever amount. And he's also going to be 5 years into his NFL career as a running back. And I'm not an Eli Manning fan, but you look at Rivers and Ben and Eli Manning, and they were drafted in 2004, and they're still playing in the league right now, starting for 3 different teams. If you can get the quarterback who's going to be your guy for the next 15 years, you got to keep trying to get that, even if it means passing on a Saquon Barkley. If there's a guy, you don't get that chance to draft at number 2 very often. Now, having said that, we'll see. And we don't know that all 5 of the quarterbacks or the 4 taken after him in the first round are going to be as productive players as he was. Maybe Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson flame out, and maybe Darnold and Rosen become Hall of Famers, or vice versa, whatever it is. But to me, I don't think it's. I think it's, for me, it's black and white. I totally understand why people will disagree. I think reasonable people can disagree on this. But I think you have to take the quarterback there. And the quarterback, maybe he sits a year behind Eli. He certainly wouldn't make him a better team today. The point is, maybe he gets Pat Mahomes and he sits for a year and he gets to learn the experience. The Giants can, kind of revamp that offensive line and do the things they need to do. But I think I still would take the quarterback, even seeing how good Saquon Barkley is.
In the salary cap era, how many great running backs have Super Bowl rings?
Not many.
Emmitt Smith.
And that was the very beginning of the salary cap era, literally.
LaDainian does not. Jerome does, but Jerome was kind of a different kind of back. And really, did Jerome ever get paid huge money during his career?
And not by the team he was drafted by.
Right. Eric Dickerson. Tony Dorsett won, but that was kind of.
Oh. Pre-salary cap, not Adrian Peterson, not I mean, we've done this before. It just has you get the quarterback first. The quarterback's going to win you the Super Bowl. The running back might help.
You're not going to contend for a Super Bowl unless you have a quarterback. Everything else is just now. Granted, he is Saquon is fun to watch, but unless you can consistently integrate him into, basically, in other words, this is a wide receiver that also runs the football, which he has put together some nice receiving yardage so far.
Oh, and he did that at Penn State, and he has to take it to the house ability. He has more of that than Le'Veon Bell. I mean, he has Todd Gurley taken to the house ability, both catching and receiving, and we saw it. Look, and the other thing about it is, we talk about this. It's one of my kind of pet peeves when people say, the Tomlin teams have underachieved. They got the Hall of Fame quarterback and running back and wide receiver. Well, we could talk. Eli was awful. And, the point is, you can have a Hall of Fame quarterback, and we could debate whether Eli is that, and he certainly isn't playing like that right now. But you have Odell Beckham Jr. and you have Saquon Barkley. Not many teams have tandems that just match up with, a number 1 receiver and a number 1 back like that. Maybe the Steelers do when Le'Veon Bell's in there and it's Antonio Brown, but not many teams do. And it doesn't do it by itself. It doesn't. You need an offensive line. You need other things. It's a team game. And so, Dave, you got the money. And look, watching football is fun. It's more entertaining when you have a little action. And you've heard us talking about it since the beginning of the season. Some of you are still on the sidelines. It's time to get in. Whether you're an expert or a rookie, you can be a pro at mybookie.ag. And if you're the guy who likes to bet a little, you can play the parlays. You get 3 teams, put 100 down, you can win 600. You get 5 teams, you can win a lot more than that. You can get up to kind of $1,000 or more on that. And now we've got everything going on. The baseball playoffs back in action tonight. Hockey, Penguins get a win over the Vegas Knights, and not Marc-Andre Fleury, but and not Matt Murray. But the Penguins beat Casey DeSmith and gets the win over Subban last night, 4-2. You got primetime fights, the whole thing. And, of course, college football getting cranked up on Saturday, Pitt, Notre Dame, the one of local interest. But there are guys, they've been around for years. We recommend them because we trust them. They got great online reviews. Mobile site's easy to use. You can play fantasy and do a bunch of other things. And they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $1,000. But get in because that's not going to happen for much longer. Use our promo code TERRIBLE, TERRIBLE, Terrible Podcast. Get involved, mybookie.com. Terrible. You play, you win. You get paid. And now I'm getting my butt kicked after an early start. I think I was ahead of you after 2 weeks, Dave, but I have fallen on harder times. Time to get back in the saddle on the weekly picks.
All right, let's get things going here with the Arizona Cardinals at the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota at home, favored by 10.
Give me the Vikes. Josh Rosen a little better last week. Looked like he might get a win, but give me the Vikes.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about this Vikings team right now. That's but I think they'll rebound enough here. Give me the Vikings and lay that big number of 10.
Browns at home playing the Chargers. Browns plus 1.5 at home. This is one of the more interesting games of the week. It'll be opposing a Steeler game, so most of us won't see it, but good one to keep an eye on.
That defense is for real with the Browns, and we kind of knew that going in. How can this offense match up against the Chargers? Phillip Rivers, they're going to do enough to confuse them. I think this is the one that I think this ends up being a letdown game for the Browns. So give me the Chargers on the road to cover the 1.5.
I like the Chargers here too, just because I think Chargers are a good team. The Bears -4 going to Miami. So this tells you what people think of the Bears defense and what they think of the Dolphins, who've been off to a reasonable start, then get thumped by New England and lose on the road to Cincinnati. 2 road games. They come back home and they're not favored. Dave, Ryan Tannehill and that offense do enough to slow down. You don't talk about slowing down a defense very often, but it is slowing down the Bears coming off a bye week. Bears -4. Give me the Dolphins at home, but the Bears to win the game.
I'll take Khalil Mack -4.
All right. Carolina and the Skins, a pick'em game in Washington. Man, Carolina's been a tough team to judge over the years, particularly in conference. Washington gets smoked last week by the Saints, coming off with a short week with the Monday night game, right? They were Monday night. I don't know about this one. Give me Alex Smith and the Skins at home.
Yeah, not me. Give me Cam on the road. This is going to be a 200-yard McCaffrey day. I like the Panthers in a pick'em. Jets
-2.5 at home against the Colts. Another very funny tweet this morning from Captain Andrew Luck about the team from New York changing the venue to New Jersey because apparently there might be an outbreak of gangrene, which I thought was very clever. Give me the Jets -2.5.
Yeah, I think Captain Andrew Luck can top the rookie on this one. So give me the Colts plus 2.5. I think the Colts win this outright. So play the money line as well too.
A lot of opposition for us so far today. Atlanta -3.5 at home against Tampa Bay. This could be a shootout. Again, the Falcons have done it at home. They've put up the points, and I expect them to do so again. Jameis Winston's going to get the nod for the Bucs. Let's go Atlanta -3.5 to bounce back to try and salvage their season.
Boy, they can't lose anymore, right? I mean, they
can't lose this one.
They definitely can't lose this one. Give me the Falcons at home, lay the 3.5. They should cover this easily. They should.
Oakland +3 at home against Seattle. Seattle played really well.
This is over in England.
Oh, right. Of course, it's a 1:00 start. Of course, it's over in England. Oakland +3 in England against Seattle. Seattle played really well at home against the Rams last week. Dave, the Raiders go all the way across, for both of them obviously going all the way across. They get their first win, or Seahawks take it to them?
John Gruden, all this new overseas travel, I don't think they're I don't think they're going until today. The Raiders. I don't know if Gruden knows how to handle all this, and they haven't been great at times. Give me Seattle in England -3.
All right, give me the Raiders just for the heck of it, man. Let's see if they get their first win. Teams generally don't go, half the season in the NFL without getting a win. Let's see if they get one on this one. The Bills +10 against the Texans. I'll take the Texans.
Oh wow! Only because DeAndre Hopkins is fun to watch. Give me the Texans -10.
Denver hosting the Rams. Denver -7 at home. I wonder when the last time that's happened. The weather forecast: 28 degrees and snow. Apparently, that was as of 24 hours ago.
It's Denver +7.
Yeah, Denver. That's what I'm sorry. Denver +7. When was the last time we saw a line of Denver +7 at home? That doesn't happen very often. Was my point. The Rams, a banged-up Rams team. We'll see if they get their receivers back. The two of them in concussion protocol this week. I'm going to, I love the Rams. I think 7 may be too many at home. Give me the Broncos.
Yeah, there's how much is the weather going to be a factor in this one? That's the thing here. I think the Rams win this, but I'll take Denver plus the points here at home.
Cowboys +3.5 at home against the Jags. I mean, this game could be the most boring again, 12-10. Somebody who cares? I mean, 3.5 in a 12-10 game is a lot of points, but I don't know what to make of Blake Bortles and the Jaguars offense. And I don't think the Cowboys are that good. So I don't like it. I don't like it either way. I'm not going to play it, Dave, but I'll take the Jags -3.5.
Yeah, this one just, you would expect this to be all defense in this one and close. And which team can run the ball better in this one? I don't know. I'm not sure about how to answer that one either. I have zero confidence in who's going to win this, but I'll think it's a 3-point game either way. So give me Dallas plus the 3.5.
That's the nationally televised game. That's what you're going to get. And if you don't, maybe here in Western Pennsylvania, we'll get the Ravens at the Titans. So basically, turn your television off at 4:15 tomorrow on Sunday because nothing to watch. Ravens -2.5 at the Titans. Let's go with my heart and take the Titans +2.5.
Man, Ravens defense, man, I just think they do just too many things well. Give me the Ravens on the road, lay the 2.5.
Very good Sunday night game. Kansas City goes into New England and gets 3.5. And until somebody does it, I'm going to keep riding the Chiefs. So I'll take the 3.5 in New England in kind of a 28-27 game.
Man, how many times have the Chiefs been able to get over on the Patriots in past years here?
Let's one more.
Huh?
Let's hope for one more.
Yeah, I don't know. Bill Belichick, he's going to find a way to do what they do best and try to take it away from them. I think there's enough tape on Mahomes now. I think the Patriots win this by more than a touchdown. So I think Mahomes gets a little bit of humbling here. Give me the Patriots -3.5 at home Sunday night.
The Monday night game would have been a good one. Would have been a really good one if Jimmy Garoppolo were playing. He's not. You got a banged up Aaron Rodgers, 9.5. C.J. Beathard, it surprised me.
All you need is George Kittle. You see that son of a gun just railroad people this past week? That guy, I'm telling you, that guy is his pro tape right now is as exciting to watch as his college tape was. I mean, that guy is incredible when healthy, and it goes back to it's too bad that Jimmy's down for the season because it would be interesting to see how the 49ers could get this thing to shape up. But this should be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, again, Lambeau Field on a Monday night, that all signs point to the Packers. Is it a blowout? Give me 9.5. I'll take 9.5.
I'm going to take the 9.5 as well too. I think the Packers win this, but 9.5. I'll take those points.
Okay, so let's get to the Steelers and the Bengals, Dave, and again, not season on the line. They got the win last week, so it's not season on the line. But this is an incredibly important game. And maybe we find out this week if the Steelers are a good team. We've seen them play well at times, but we have not seen, even last week, we can say, people say whatever they want, but that game was 13-10 at halftime. Ben had not played well in the first half. The defense was pretty good, and the defense put together, a pretty solid effort. Can they do it 2 weeks in a row against a banged up Bengals team? I'm going to go yes. I mean, a little bit of recency bias, but this goes back to Mike Tomlin's statements, every year coming in is we're not a finished product coming out of St. Vincent College. We're not a finished product in week one. They're not a finished product after the Falcons game. One of the things we've seen is the Steelers, like last year they started 0-4. They came back and went 8-8. Last year, they were 2-2 and they rolled off, they won 11 of 12 or whatever it was. This is a team that has gotten better during the season. So I'm going to guess last week was not a mirage, and the Steelers do go in and win this game in Cincinnati, and that they play pretty well, and they win it 27-17. So obviously they cover somewhat comfortably.
Boy, you look at, we talked about how banged up they are, talking about Cincinnati in this game, and as long as, if they just don't fall behind, if Ben just does not lose this thing for them, we talked about Haden. We talked about forcing that Bengals offense to beat you with Boyd and to beat you, the other routes. If they don't let Mixon go crazy in this game, I mean, this matches up good for them, quite honestly. So, Chris Boswell is perfect against the Bengals during his career.
That was a good stat you put up. I like that. 20 for 20. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I think 20 for 20 and like 11-11 on extra points. And if you throw in, I think, the 4 field goals in the playoffs, I mean, he's perfect against them. I am going to bet he stays perfect, and I'm going to bet he hits a field goal at the end of the game to win this. Mike Tomlin talked this past week how he's gotten them out of some stadiums and against this team with some wins. I think Boswell does it again in this one. 27-24 Steelers over the Bengals. So that means they cover the 2 or they get the +2. They won't need that +2 in this one, but Steelers by 3.
All right, good stuff, man. And we'll know a lot more about this team. We'll know a lot more about James Conner. We might know even more about Le'Veon Bell come Monday and see what happens.
Absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow David Todd on Twitter at David M. Todd. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast at gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit that donate button, upper right navigational bar. We have a ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com available too for $25 for a calendar year. Go to SteelersDepot.com, hit ad-free on top of that. A lot of great content coming for you before the game this weekend as well too. Invite you to swing by SteelersDepot.com to see that as well. David, Todd, and I will be back on Monday.
As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Dave.